Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Today's warehouse needs to keep inventory moving smoothly and quickly. Meet these challenges with on-demand warehouse labeling from Brother Mobile Solutions. Our mobile and industrial printers will help optimize your operations to achieve the speed, reliability, and durability your warehouse needs. With easy integration for existing warehouse technology, convenient portability, and upfront affordability, Brother Mobile Solutions is at your side when it comes to warehouse labeling. Try one for free today by visiting brothermobilesolutions.com/new warehouse or click the link in the show notes. That's brothermobilesolutions.com/new warehouse to try one for free today.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I am going to be joined by Rob Van Stratum. He is a managing partner and APICS master instructor at Supply Chain Education CZ, and he also does some APICS instructing as well, very focused on instructing and being an instructor in the supply chain space. And he's going to tell us a little bit about an interesting topic that I guess I was aware of the concept of it, but I didn't realize that there was a term and also a whole framework kind of behind this idea of psychological safety. And Rob actually kind of enlightened me to this on LinkedIn. So we decided to join up and do this podcast here. So I want to welcome Rob to the show all the way from Belgium, I think you said, right? You're in Belgium?
Netherlands, close to Belgium.
Okay, and then the Netherlands. All right. Yeah. So Rob, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Kevin. I'm doing great. In fact, it's already almost the second half of the afternoon, so weekend will start soon.
So you're almost at the weekend, and I'm just getting started on Friday here, counting down the hours, yes. Right? So, so very good to connect from across the world here. So, yep. I guess why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you ended up in the supply chain space and ended up being an instructor here.
Well, I've been an academic the last 25 years of my career in Eindhoven. University of Applied Sciences, and I've been teaching general management and supply chain management and change management for all kinds of students, national students, but also international students, bachelor degrees, master degrees. And as a matter of fact, if you are in Eindhoven, you are in fact at the center of gravity of Dutch manufacturing. So a lot of big companies, well known over the world, like ASML or Philips or DAF Trucks, which is actually an American firm right now, subsidiary of PACCAR, are there. And a lot of my students have done a thesis, and I did this thesis supervision. So I know a lot of these guys in the manufacturing companies. Okay. Before my academic career, I've been consulting in the supply chain, 5 years, warehousing and lean. And during that first 5 years, I became also an APICS instructor. Mm-hmm. And during my academic career, I've been teaching APICS for 25 years. Recently, I retired, so now I can focus entirely on teaching APICS a lot. So I still come inside a lot of, supply chain activities, warehousing, transportation, manufacturing. And, I really love it. Big ships, big trains, big trucks, machines, the smell of oil in a metal plant, that still fascinates me.
Very interesting, and definitely an interesting background. And it's great that now you're taking that background and those experiences and being able to apply it to your instructing and being able to pass that knowledge and experience on to people that are also in the supply chain space and looking to grow within the supply chain space as well. So I'm curious, actually, because I'm involved in APICS at ASCM as well over here in New Jersey, and I have my CLTD certification. But I'm curious, maybe you can tell the listener because I get this question from time to time. What would you say is the value of a CLTD certification in the distribution and transportation space?
Well, first we must talk about the value of any certification, and that value is in fact proportional with the number of people that already are certified. I think if you are the only CLTD on the planet, then nobody else would recognize you. And the big thing for APICS certification is that they are, by far the biggest and most well-known certifications in the world. You have 3 types: CPIM, the oldest; I would say CSCP, the new kid on the block, already new kid, 20 years old; and CLTD is the most recent one. And really, if you are doing something in supply chain, especially on global transportation, then CLTD has quite a big value. It gives you, I'm CLTD certified myself. I have taught the course several times. It gives you a very comprehensive overview of all the things you should know as not a senior consultant over there, but on a media level. You start with nothing, and then in just 120 hours of study, you know quite a lot. And with this certificate, you can let know other people that you have done this. You have passed the exam, and you are able to do a decent job. And that's quite valuable. I see even in Europe, many firms that are asking for jobs, and then they would always say an APICS certification is for sure a recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and I would echo the same thing. I mean, I think in being CLTD certified and going through the course and the test as well, I took it earlier on in my career when I was more at like analyst type level, and it certainly exposed me to a lot of concepts that I probably would not have gotten exposed to later on in my career if I was just to be dependent on my company and giving me those opportunities to do those things. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's a good thing to throw in here, especially as some people have asked me as well in the audience, what should they do CLTD? What's the value there? So we want to talk today, our big topic today, about this concept of psychological safety. And it's something that I guess I had never heard this term before, but the concept is very interesting. And I've certainly seen the concept in my experience in working in distribution warehousing. But tell us, I guess, from your perspective, what is psychological safety?
Well, to give the definition, it's the individual's perception of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk. And then you immediately ask yourself, what is an interpersonal risk? Well, if I know somebody not so well, I could ask him a question, but then I might be afraid that the other person thinks I'm a dumb one because I don't know anything. But if I really want to ask the question, I will do it. And if the other person then is going to humiliate me with the words, you are a dumb one, then of course I know enough. But usually when you ask a question, you will see to your surprise that many people are happy to help you. And that applies for a lot of other things. For instance, taking a little risk. You see something unusual. It's not in your job description. And you are thinking, shall I do it or not? And then if you are afraid to take this risk, you do nothing. And then, of course, you could have done something afterwards, but you didn't do it because you're afraid to be punished. If you are psychological safe, you do it. Maybe there is a little risk, but then your boss will ask you, why did you do it? And then you explain to the boss, this and this happened, so I took this decision. And then the boss said, well, I like people that are not sitting on their hands, but that are really trying to accomplish a task. In this time, it didn't work out so well, but next time you could do it another way, blah, 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 and then you're good. So you are not afraid to be labeled as anything negative like lazy or dumb or negative. You are safe if you think that in your team, the other team members will not punish you for just a mistake, but they will take that mistake as an opportunity to learn and to avoid it and to make maybe another mistake yourself the next time, but only once. That's, in fact, also everything I told to my students. I said, you are here in this university. Right. This is a school. It's different from later on. In the real workplace, you don't want to make many mistakes because in some companies, they wouldn't even allow you to make one mistake. In some companies, you may make 2 mistakes, but never 3. But in this school, you make all the mistakes you want. You learn by doing. And, well, the best way of learning is doing, of course. Right. And while doing, you will make mistakes and you will get feedback. And this feedback is not aimed to give you a miserable life, but the feedback is meant to improve you. And people feel safe if they are in this kind of atmosphere. I maybe might tell you how I stumbled upon this term.
Sure.
Some 10 years ago, we had quite a lot of senior people in the team, like me right now. And we hired a lot of young people to teach. And they were people from the practical field, professional software engineers that recently had quite good jobs and that wanted to be in the, let's say, more protected environment of the university with a lot of free days and the quality time. And they had to learn to teach. And the best way to learn to teach was not to give them a course or to let them read books or something, but just give a little preparation, let them spy on me and other senior colleagues, and then now you're going to do it yourself. But we are going to sit in the back of the class. We keep our mouth shut. You solve all the problems, and afterwards we will talk about what went on in your class, and we ask you, what do you think that went okay? And that worked quite well. It was also learning on the job. And then I did some more research, and I came to this Google company with their project Aristotle. And they were investigating what makes a team. In fact, what makes an effective team, and they call that a wonder team. And then I discovered that the first and most important characteristic of a wonder team is that the members are feeling psychological safe.
Right.
So they know how to give feedback. They know how to get feedback. Everybody in the team knows it's his own or her own strong and less stronger points. And the other people know, if I do Rob this, he will like it and he will do it better and faster than anybody else. If we ask Rob to do that, well, he might do it, but maybe not. And he's not giving it the highest priority. But I know in my turn, if they ask me to do a less favorable job, they ask it because maybe somebody else that should do it is ill. And I'm not afraid to step in his place, and I'll do it. Although it is not my most favorite job, I still will do it with the best things I have inside. So the second thing in the team is that people are dependable. A yes is a yes and a no is a no. They complete their quality work with professionalism, on time, and maybe also in the budget. And then the third one is also important. It gives you the team gives you structure and clarity about your jobs. And once again, if you have a job that you really know, and then where you know what to do and not to do, you are psychologically safe. You are willing to take risks, but you are not making the obvious mistakes. And then the fourth and the fifth ones were that you think your job is meaningful to the company. It creates, what it should create. At the end, of course, a profit. And that your job also has a positive impact on society. I can tell you that in university, of course, teaching young people to become professionals for sure has a profound impact on society, because in the Netherlands, we have a huge shortage on tech people. Everybody wants to be a journalist or a lawyer or something, but nobody wants to have a blue collar on and do something with electronics or with mechanics or other things. So we must import our brains from India and from Romania and Bulgaria and so on. But that also makes it a nice city with international students. So psychological safety is essential for, I would say, any team.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Right. Interesting. And I think it's a really interesting concept because, you should be able to ask those questions and like you said, not be in fear that someone's going to, basically come down on you and like you said, call you dumb or something like that. Right. Yes. And it's interesting how people will, in a sense, be in fear almost to speak up or give some type of feedback in a work setting, because like you said, they may be in fear of being, punished or potentially, kind of, blacklisted or something, right? Not included in projects because, they're, not saying what everyone necessarily wants to hear, like all positives, right? So it's an interesting thing. And I think it's something that I've certainly seen in my experience where, there's certain people where not only are they afraid to give some feedback, but then there's also people within organizations that are not necessarily receptive to feedback, you could say, right? Like they don't necessarily take feedback well if it's not all praise, right? So I'm curious from your perspective as we're the New Warehouse podcast, right? So we're focused on the warehousing side. So why do you think this psychological safety is so important for a warehousing or fulfillment space?
Well, I think I don't know any warehouse or fulfillment situation where just one person is doing everything.
Right.
You always work in a team and you get things done in a team together. And so it boils down to teamwork. And in any teamwork where you do things together, where you have shared responsibilities, this team building, team working concept is important. And then, like the Google Wonder Teams, being safe is important. And I also don't know any warehouse or fulfillment situation where everything always runs completely predictable.
Right.
Things are breaking. Things are not in the place where they should be. The suppliers are late. There are rush orders. Sometimes there is a little bit or even much more work to be done than possibly can be done in the time that is allotted, and you have to do unexpected overtime, etc., etc. So you have to cope with the unexpected. And then you see the qualities of a team. Because in a bad team, everybody is, look. But in a one team, we get the things done. And and in such a situation, we all are human beings. We make mistakes, and then it becomes important what we are going to do with the team members that make mistakes. Are we going to, punish them, or are we going to use the mistake to do it better next time? That's really the essence.
Yeah. And I think the punishment word there, I think, is a huge thing, especially for the warehousing and fulfillment space. I mean, you're coming from a lean background as well, right? I mean, going to the floor and being able to rely on the employees that are doing the work every day for feedback and understanding of how processes are going and even finding potential improvements from them is a huge opportunity for organizations to be able to do that, right? But oftentimes you see where these workers have been, quote unquote, punished in the past, maybe in previous jobs or different departments, depending on how organizations are run or managers' attitudes or supervisors, actions and what they do can result in that. And, from those experiences, then people, I think, naturally kind of shy away from now being, more outspoken about things that they could potentially see as improvements or issues that they see because of those experiences of, being met with some negative reactions or not necessarily, open ears to feedback, right? So when you have, and I've certainly had employees in warehousing settings that have come in as new hires and worked for me and have experienced this, I think, in the past. And, you see that it's hard to kind of get them to get to a place where they feel comfortable sharing, right? And having this psychological safety, right? Where they can give some feedback, whether they think a new process is good or bad, or, you know, part of the process is not working for them in their day to day, and they think it could be better if we do X, right, versus Y. So, you know, how do you think that you can, when you bring in people that maybe have experienced being psychologically unsafe, I guess we could say, right, in the past, how do you work on kind of changing their thinking and being able to get them to feel psychologically safe within your environment?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I would say that I would try to look to them, to supervise them, and I would try with feedback to make them clear what is the meaning of psychological safety. So let's take a little example. I, for instance, could see that another picker is picking a bottle with liquid. And while he's picking, he sees that the bottle already is leaking. And then he quickly looks around if nobody sees, and then he puts the bottle in the box, he closes the box, job done. And then I would ask this other picker at my desk, or not on the desk, somewhere, and I would ask him, why did you put the bottle on in the box while it was obviously leaking? And then this person might say, okay, yeah, I have my performance to meet. And if I would report this, it would take time. But then I would say, what do you think what happens with this broken bottle? Well, sooner or later, of course, a customer will open it, and then he will be dissatisfied. So I would say, what is better for the company? An unsatisfied customer, or maybe an order picker that did pick one item less than he should pick in this hour? Yes, one order picker, one order less, of course. Okay, so next time, please don't package a broken bottle. And by the way, why do you do this? Well, in my previous job, I was perfectly instructed by my supervisor to do whatever to get this performance criterion, and even packing a broken item didn't matter. As soon as the package was closed, nobody would take care. Somebody else was the victim, but that was not his problem. And by showing how this works, I would slowly, but not too slow, try to change the behavior with feedback.
Yeah, I think that's a great example there, because I think there is oftentimes we find, especially in the fast-paced environment of especially like e-commerce, right? Get all these orders out by this time. You do find situations where performance sometimes can potentially, I guess, psychologically outweigh the quality aspect, right? If you see it, if you look at your example, and I think that it needs to be communicated effectively that quality is kind of actually above performance in a sense, right? I mean, I would always tell my pickers and my employees, it's you could pick 1,000 orders in a minute for me, but if 900 of them are incorrect, then you only really picked 100, right? So if that order's wrong going out the door, I mean, it essentially didn't count in a sense, right? So, I mean, as you start to give them those perspectives, I think you're able to change the thinking a little bit. And also one thing that I find has been effective as well for me is kind of along that same example. I had a situation where we had an inventory issue where the product was supposed to be in a lower level pick location, but I guess for whatever reason, the pallet was not in the correct spot, but the same product, there was like an overstock pallet, like two levels up, and people were picking from that overstock pallet for almost like 2 weeks and never said anything. They never, like, the system kept driving them to that pick location on the bottom, and they saw it was like 2 levels up, so they're like, I'm just gonna take it from there. I'm just gonna take it from there. I'm just gonna take it from there. And then finally, it came to the point where that overstock pallet was coming down, and then someone said like, oh, there's not enough. And I go and look at it, I'm like, why didn't no one say anything? Like, why didn't no one speak up this whole time? And it was kind of like that lack of understanding of like, hey, you need to speak up when something's wrong, because it's not only impacting you. And I showed them too. I'm like 9 of you went to this location and didn't say anything. And then now finally it's catching up, and now we have an issue like where we can't figure out like what's going on with this order. So if you speak up at that time, then, you know, we're able to fix the issue and then fix it for everybody that's going to come behind you as well. So I think it's really interesting, this idea of psychological safety, and I'm happy that you could enlighten me initially and now enlighten our audience as well to this topic and really shed some light on it and bring it to the forefront, because I think it's extremely important in our industry and the environments that we work in that, you know, people are comfortable to be able to give this feedback, and especially people that are on the floor. They're going to have some of the best ideas, I think, in my experience, for improvements and things like that. And if they feel comfortable being open and suggesting things, whether, you know, their suggestion ultimately makes it into the process or doesn't, you give them that understanding of like, we can consider it and, you know, work through it and see what it looks like. They're going to feel comfortable, you know, coming and giving you more and more and more. And it's just going to be great benefit for your organization, I think. So if we look at psychological safety from your perspective, I mean, if you have this built into your culture, what do you see are long-term benefits of psychological safety?
Well, I really like that question, because I was just about to make the remark that psychological safety in itself is not new. If you look, for instance, at the TPS, I think you know it, the Toyota production system, then it has a roof and 3 pillars and basement. And the middle pillar is the most important. And you see over there things like employee morale and worker participation and quality circles. So I've seen at DAF, they produce about 10 trucks per hour, but on the last Friday of every month, they stop production during the last 3 hours of the Friday, and they sit in quality circles. So they could have produced some 30 trucks, but they prefer to improve the quality on the longer term. And that's also, of course, a very, you know, good opportunity to discuss everything that has to do with psychological safety. Right. But it is, in fact, what you're asking is, it brings the company on a higher level, going for short-term profits. And this year's P&L sheet, that's one thing. But if you are investing in your people, you will a better working atmosphere. The people will make less mistakes. They will be almost never ill. Very important. No absenteeism, maybe 0.5%. Yeah. And at the long term, the quality strategy brings the most. And that has been true for almost each and every company that has gone on this way. And psychological safety is just one of the many contributors to this long-term quality perspective.
Yeah, great points. And I think your comment there about the, you know, going for the short-term profit versus the long-term, really building a business that's solid, puts out a quality product, and also, you know, like you said, you know, reducing that employee turnover and then reducing employee absenteeism, I mean, is a huge thing. And if you think about
maybe I might add one thing. You see companies more and more emphasizing on ESG, you know, environment, social, and governance. And if you relate psychological safety to these ESG, then of course it is in the middle letter, social. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have these triple D jobs, you know, dangerous, dirty, and demeaning. Yeah. I don't think that many companies can keep up with these triple D jobs. People at the end are not stupid, and they will prefer to work for the ESG companies that take it serious.
Yes, yeah. I think that's a great point too. I mean, it can only help you just build your business stronger and I think more resilient as time goes on, which, you know, instead of chasing, like you said, that short-term profit, it's going to just exponentially increase your long-term profits and your, you know, really help you build a business that's going to, you know, stand the test of time and I think be solid and very quality. So Rob, I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about this topic with me, and incredibly interesting and definitely a great thing to be putting into practice, I think, in operations or all aspects of the business, really. So if people are interested in learning more about what you do or getting in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
You can go to my LinkedIn profile. I'm not difficult to find, of course. And then you will see my email address, my professional, and my, I think, Gmail something. You can just send me a mail. I'm also on the APICS list of master instructors. So I'm not that difficult to find. In fact, if you Google me, you will also find me, for sure.
Okay, great. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it and easily find Rob. So, Rob, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.